Hey everybody. So last week I put up videos for Romeo and Juliet that covered through all 5 scenes of Act 1. Today we're going to go ahead and start Act 2. So hopefully everybody put your or noticed that your work on Classroom. We've been doing that. I haven't checked it since Friday. Today is Monday as I'm recording this. So I'm going to look over that here in a little bit, update grades. I'm putting things in as collected or not collected, or basically leaving it blank, or I'm putting it in as collected when I put things in my grade book. So as long as you're showing as collected, everything's good. Like you don't have anything to worry about. You have gotten full credit for that assignment. Those of you who are watching this on DVD, believe I'm sending these DVDs out probably Thursday or Friday of this week. You've gotten your last set in your packets. So you can either email those to me at kdalton@gilesk12.net. You can take a good picture, don't take, if you're taking a picture of your work, make certain that the whole picture is your page. Try not to have a lot of extra stuff. Try to have as good a picture of that page as possible. Or if you can get to Classroom, upload things there. You can upload that picture to Classroom as your assignment that you're turning in. A few different ways that you can do this. All right. So for recap of scene 1 or act 1. So we start off with the Montagues walking down the street, or I'm sorry, the Capulet servants walking down the street. They see Montagues. A big fight starts. Benvolio tries to break it up. Tybalt doesn't want to break it up. He starts a fight with Benvolio. The townspeople break it up. The prince comes, says, next time any of y'all do this, you're going to die. We then talk to Romeo's parents. Benvolio finds out that Romeo has been really sad. He'll go find out what's going on. Ends up that there's a girl Romeo's in love girl that Romeo was in love with, Rosaline. And he's upset because she's decided that she's going to live as a virgin. So it's not even that she doesn't love him, doesn't want to date him. It's literally she's going to live as a virgin. So Benvolio says, I'll fix this. I'm going to take you somewhere so that I can show you her in comparison to other people. And, it's going to be great. I'm going to show you that she's not all that great. We're going to go from there to the next scene, which is where we meet Paris. Paris is somebody that is trying to get Juliet's father's approval so that he can marry her. Juliet's father says, hey, let's slow down a minute. She's 13 years old. Let's wait 2 years, let 2 summers wither in their pride ere we think she's fit to become a bride. So let's wait 2 years, then we'll talk. In the meantime, having a party tonight, bunch of people are going to be there, a bunch of beautiful women. How about you come show up, look around, see if you like her. You might not even like her the best. Try to win her over. If she likes you, then we'll go from there. Scene 3, we meet Juliet and her mother, where we find out that her mother is a little bit more into this idea of her marrying Paris than he was, than her father was. So she's like, hey, how about you look him over at the party tonight, see if you like him. Everything's going to be great. You're not going to lose anything by marrying. And she's like, well, I'll look. And, if I like him, I'll ask y'all's permission. We then have the Montagues are going to crash the party. They're going to crash it because Rosaline is going to be there. And Benvolio's like, well, I'm going to show you Rosaline compared to all these other beautiful women. Romeo doesn't want to go. He had a bad dream. He has a bad feeling about this. So Romeo says that he has a bad dream about it. And Mercutio goes off on this thing saying that, oh, well, you must have been talking to Queen Mab. Queen Mab is this kind of weird make believe little fairy that causes dreams. And he's basically like, look, dreams are stupid. They don't mean anything. They're from an idle brain. You know, you're not thinking, so you're putting stuff together. So they get ready to leave. And Romeo has another like thought or vision or something like that. Romeo basically thinks something bad is going to start tonight. Something bad is going to start tonight that ends with me dying. But, you know, let's go with it. Whatever. So they go to the Capulet party and he sees Juliet. It's love at first sight. He's amazed by her. She teaches the torches to burn bright. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then Juliet feels exactly the same way. They have their first kiss. And then both of them find out that the other is from the family that is their house's enemy. And that's where we end. So let's go ahead and pick up with scene 2 or act 2. All right, so here we are, act 2, and we have another prologue. So out comes the chorus again. Remember, this can be either somebody kind of narrating the story or it can be a group of people. Now old desire doth in his deathbed lie, and young affection gapes to be his heir. That fair for which love groaned for and would die, with tender Juliet matched, is now not fair. Now Romeo is beloved and loves again, alike bewitched by the charm of looks. But to his foes supposed he must complain, and she steals love's sweet bait from fearful hooks. Being held a foe, he may not have access to breathe such vows as lovers used to swear. And she is much in love, her means much less to meet her new beloved anywhere. But passion lends them power, time means to meet, tempting extremities with extreme sweet. So Romeo's old feelings are dying and new feelings are taking place. Now old desire doth in his deathbed lie, and young affection gapes to be his heir. So his old feelings are dead, his new feelings have been brought up. The one that he groaned for, the fair for which love groaned for and would die, with tender Juliet matched, is now not fair. So it's like this Rosaline that he was so in love with now isn't anything because he's met Juliet. Romeo is beloved and loves again. So not only is he in love, now somebody loves him back, but his foe supposed he must complain. It's supposed to be his enemy. And she's just in love with him. But passion lends them power. Time means to meet. So they're in love. They need to meet again. Time's given them the ability. So, tempting extremities with extreme sweet. This is danger. Like them being together is danger. Their houses hate each other. But there's pleasure in it. Now let's talk about the timeline a little bit before I get into the next scene. The play starts on Sunday morning. The party is Sunday night. So the scenes that we're getting ready to go into, we're going to cover scene 1 very briefly. There's not a lot in it that we need to even bother with. And scene 2, which is probably the most famous scene in Romeo and Juliet, the balcony scene. Those happen late Sunday night. So imagine like Sunday at like midnight. So, all right, so let's go into scene 1. Now, like I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm basically just going to go over it really quickly. Scene 1, Romeo and his buddies are leaving the party. And Romeo is now like so in love, he has to be near Juliet. Can I go forward when my heart is here? Turn back, dull earth, and find thy center out. So he's like, how can I leave? My love, my heart is here. So he turns around and he just runs, like he leaves the group. And Benvolio and Mercutio, they come looking for him. You know, my cousin Romeo, Romeo. And Mercutio's like, he's wise, and all my life has stolen him home to bed. So Mercutio's like, nah, he's went home and went to bed. And Benvolio says, he ran this way and left this orchard wall. Good call, Mercutio. So, or call, good Mercutio. So he's like, no, he didn't like run away. He ran to this wall and climbed over it. He's like, call him. And Mercutio like starts to kind of pick at him and talking about he's going to call him by, let's see, I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes, by her high forehead and her scarlet lip, by her fine foot, straight leg, and quivering thigh, that the dimmest that there adjacent lie, and in that likeliness thou appear to us. So he's like, I'm calling to you, I'm conjuring you by Rosaline. I'm going to bring you to me. I'm going to talk about Rosaline's eyes and her foot and her legs and her thighs. And then this part here, the dimmestness that they're adjacent line. And it's like, and the parts that are near her thighs. I'm going to call to him there and I'm going to bring him to me. And Benvolio's like, if he hears you, he's going to make him angry. And he's like, nah. It's like, I'm not going to make him angry. And Benvolio says, come, he's hid himself among these trees to be consorted with the humorous night. Blind is his love and best befits the dark. So they still think that he's tore up over Rosaline. And Benvolio's like, just leave him alone. So, go then, for 'tis in vain to seek him here that means not to be found. So they're like, we aren't going to be able to find him. We shouldn't even be looking for him. It's silly. So that's going to take us into scene 2. Act 2, scene 2 is the most famous part of the play. If you know anything about Romeo, a Romeo and Juliet, it's this scene. So Romeo comes into the scene and he's in the courtyard out at Juliet's house. And he comes in and he says, he jests at scars that never felt a wound. So it's like, it's easy for him to joke about all this stuff if he's actually never been cut. He's joking about the scars, but he's never felt the cut. He's joking about love, but he's never been in love. And Juliet appears in the window. Like, she comes out onto her balcony and she's standing in the window and Romeo sees her. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who's already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, and yet says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses. I will answer it. I'm too bold. 'Tis not to me she speaks. Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. What if her eyes were there, they in her head? The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars, as daylight doth a lamp. Her eye in heaven would through the airy region stream so bright that birds would sing and think that it were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. So Romeo's in full, crazy mode here. He sees her. So he sees her and he's like, what's the light in that window? What light through yonder window breaks? He says, it's the east, and Juliet is the sun. So it's like she's the sun rising in the east. That's what the light out of her room is. And he says, "Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who's already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she." He's like, so rise, sun, rise up and kill off the moon, because the moon is jealous that you are more bright than her. You're more beautiful than the moon. And it is my lady. It is my love. Oh, that she wished. Oh, that she knew she were. So he's like, I wish she knew how I felt about her. Then he goes, she speaks, yet says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses, I will answer. So he's like, she's getting ready to talk. And he's like, I'm going to answer her. And he's like, oh, no, no, no. I'm too bold. It's not to me she speaks. So it's like, she's not talking to me. So I need to sit over here in the weeds and stop talking and just keep looking at her like a creeper. And he says, two of the fairest stars in all heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. So it's like two of the most beautiful stars in the sky have asked her eyes to take their place because they twinkle and shine that bright. It's like, and what if that was the case? You know, the brightness would, like in the sky of her eyes, would cause the sky to be so bright that the birds would sing and think that it wasn't even night. And she lays her hand on her cheek, and he goes, oh, look at that. I wish I were a glove on her hand so that I could touch her cheek. And Juliet just kind of sighs, and she's like, ah, me. She's like, basically, oh, my. Of course, Romeo's down in the bushes listening. She speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel. For thou art as glorious to this night, being o'er my head as a winged messenger of heaven unto the white, upturned, wondering eyes of mortals that fall back to gaze on him where he bestrides the lazy, puffing clouds and sails upon the bosom of the air. So it's like, speak again. You're as glorious as an angel. You shine above me like a messenger from heaven. And then she gives the line that probably everybody knows from Romeo and Juliet. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. Now, a big thing to go here is, one, she does not see Romeo. She's talking to Romeo. This is what's called apostrophe. She's talking to Romeo as, like, if he's there. So she's talking to Romeo, and she says, wherefore art thou Romeo? This does not mean what you think it means. Wherefore does not mean where. She's not saying, Romeo, Romeo, where are you, Romeo? Wherefore at this time means why. So she's saying, Romeo, Romeo, why are you Romeo? Why do you have to be who you are? Why couldn't you be anybody else? Why do you have to be Romeo? And she says, deny thy father and refuse thy name. So go against your father and refuse your name. Or if you won't, if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll be no longer be a Capulet. So if you won't go against yours, just tell me you love me, and I'll stop being a Capulet. And of course, Romeo's down here just hearing this. He's like, shall I hear more? Or shall I speak of this? He's like, should I keep here listening, or should I start talking to her? And Juliet says, 'tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a montague. What's montague? It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. So she says, it's just your name that's the enemy. It's just the fact that you're a Montague. And what is a Montague? A Montague isn't a hand, it's not a foot or an arm or a face, or a Montague is not any other part of a Montague or of a man. So it's like, be some other name. You know, if we took a rose and we changed the name of it, it would still smell sweet. So Romeo would still be perfect if he wasn't called Romeo. And she says, Romeo, doff thy name, lose your name, and trade that name for all of me. And now Romeo's had it. He can't not talk at this. So he kind of jumps out of the bushes. He says, I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I will never be Romeo. Of course, baptism is when you get your name. So, and this time, so he's like, sure, I take you. I take you at your word. If you say you love me, I'll have a new name and I won't be Romeo anymore. So Juliet hears this and she's freaked out because it's dark. She doesn't know who this is hollering at her. So she says, what man art thou that thus bescreamed in night, so stumbles on my counsel? So she's like, who are you? Why are you hiding in the darkness and listening to my thoughts? And Romeo says, by a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself because it is an enemy to thee. Had I had it written, I would tear the word. So he's like, I don't know how to tell you who I am because you hate my name. And because you hate my name, I hate my name. If I had it written on a piece of paper, I'd tear it up. And Juliet says, my ears have not yet drunk 100 words of that tone's uttering, yet I know the sound. Art thou not Romeo and a Montague? So she's like, I haven't heard you say 100 words yet, but I know who you are. Aren't you Romeo? Aren't you a Montague? And Romeo says, neither, fair maid, if either thee dislike. He's like, I'm not either one of those things if you don't want me to be. She says, how camest thou hither? Tell me, and wherefore? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and the place death, considering who thou art. If any of my kinsmen find thee here. She's like, how'd you get here? Tell me, and why are you here? Because the orchard walls are really high, they're hard to climb, and if any of my family see you, they will kill you. And he says, with love's light wings did I o'erperch these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out. And what love can do, that dares love attempt, therefore thy kinsmen are no stop to me. So he's like, I flew over the walls with love's wings, because the walls can't keep me out. Whatever a man in love feels that he can do, he'll do it. Your relatives can't stop. And Juliet says, if they do see thee, they will murder thee. So she's like, well, yeah, if they see you, they're going to kill you. And Romeo says, alack, there lies more peril in thine eye than 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I am proof against their enmity. So he's like, an angry look from you is worse than 20 of their swords. As long as you look at me beautifully, as long as you're happy with me, I'm invincible. And Juliet says, I would not for the world they saw thee here. She's like, I'd give anything to keep them from seeing you here. Romeo says, I have night's cloak to hide me from their eyes. And but thou love me, let them find me here. My life were better ended by their hate than death corrode, wanting of thy love. So he's like, it's dark. The darkness will hide me. And you know what? If you don't love me, then let them find me. Because I would rather they kill me than to live my life without your love. And Juliet says, by whose direction foundst thou this place? So she's like, who told you how to get to my bedroom? And Romeo says, by love that first did prompt me acquire, he lent me counsel and I lent him eyes. I am no pilot, yet wert thou as far as that vast shore watched with the farthest sea, I would adventure for such merchandise. So he's like, love showed me the way. The same thing happened when I first saw you. And if I were a sailor, Or it's like, I'm not a sailor, but if I were, I would sail across the farthest sea just to get to you. And Juliet says, Thou know'st the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek, for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. Fain I would dwell unformed, fain deny what I have spoke. But farewell compliment. So she's like, it's a good thing you can't see my face because it's dark out, or else you'd see that I'm blushing because of what you heard me say. I'd be happy to like deny it and say that I didn't say that, but you know what? The heck with it. Farewell compliment. The heck with it. Dost thou love me? Do you love me? I know thou wilt say I, and I'll take the word. Yet if thou swearest, thou may prove false. At lovers' perjuries they say Jove laughs. Old gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. Or if thou thinkest I am too quickly won, I'll frown and be perverse and say thee nay. So thou wilt woo. But else not for the world, in truth, fair Montague, I am too fond, and therefore thou mayst think my behavior light. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those who have more coying to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess. But that thou overheardst ere while I was ware, my true love's passion. Therefore pardon me, and not impute this yielding to light love, which the dark night hath so discovered. So she's like, let's see. Do you love me? I know you'll say yes, and I'm going to take you at your word. But if you swear it, you might be false. And they say that Zeus laughs at the lies that lovers tell. So if you do love me, pronounce it faithfully. Say it and mean it. Or if you think I'm too quickly won, if you think you're winning me over too easy, I'll frown and I'll say no, and I'll make you work for me. I'll make you woo. But honestly, I'd rather not do that. So she's like, but if you don't believe that, so therefore thou mayst think my behavior light. So she's like, you may believe that I'm being a little bit too crazy with my behavior, but trust me, I'll prove myself more faithful than the girls that play hard to get. Then she says, I should have been more strange. So that's strength when she says, than those that have more coin to be strange. That's playing hard to get. Then she says, I should have played hard to get, I must confess. But you've already overheard my true feelings, so why should I hide it? And Romeo starts to swear to her, and what we mean by swear, not like cursing or anything like that, but swearing, I swear by the stars, or I swear blah, blah. So he says, yonder, or lady, by yonder blessed moon I vow that tips the silver of all these fruit treetops. So he's like, I'm going to swear by the moon. And, Juliet kind of catches him here. And she says, oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb, lest that thy love prove likewise variable. So she's like, don't swear by the moon. The moon changes every night. So unless your love is going to change every night like that, don't swear by the moon. And Romeo says, what shall I swear by? And Juliet says, do not swear at all. Or if thou wilt, swear by thy gracious self, which is the God of my idolatry, and I'll believe thee. So she's like, well, don't swear at all. Or if you are going to swear on yourself, because that's the God that I worship, and I'll believe you. And he starts. Romeo's like, here we go. If my dear heart's love, and he's like starting to swear, and she goes, well, do not swear. Although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say it lightens. Sweet good night. So she's like, don't swear. You know what? Calm down. Although you bring me joy, although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. So she's like, I'm not Even though I love you, I don't love the fact that we're exchanging these feelings tonight. It's too quickly, too rash, too unadvised, too sudden. It's happening too fast. We aren't thinking about this. It's almost like lightning, which lightning disappears before somebody can point to it and say, hey, there's lightning. It's already gone. So she tells him good night, sweet good night. This bud of love by summer's ripening breath may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. Good night, good night. As sweet repose and rest come to thy heart as that within my breast. So she's like, this little bud of love is going to be a beautiful flower in the summer. Let's take our time. And she tells him good night. And Romeo goes, oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? So she's leaving and telling him good night. And he's like, wait a minute. You're just going to leave me unsatisfied? You can take that a couple different ways. And Juliet turns and catches him and goes, what satisfaction canst thou have tonight? So she's like, what satisfaction were you looking for? Romeo plays this off. And he says, the exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine. So he's like, I want to tell you I love you, and you tell me you love me back. And Juliet says, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it, and yet I would it were to give again. So she's like, I gave you that before you even asked for it. You kind of overheard me saying that. But I wish I could take it back so I could give it to you again. And Romeo says, wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love? So she's like, why would you take it back? And Juliet says, but to be frank and give it thee again. And yet I wish but for the thing I have. My bounty is as boundless as the sea. My love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. So she's like, I wish that I could only be generous and give it to you again. But I'm wishing for something I already have, because my love for you is as limitless as the sea, and it's as deep as the sea. The more love I give to you, the more I have. They're infinite. So the nurse calls from within. The nurse is like, Juliet, Juliet, calling her by name. I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu. Anon, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little. I will come again. So she's like, I hear some noise. Goodbye, my love. And then she hollers at the nurse. In a minute, And then she tells Montague, be true. Stay here for a minute. I'll come back. And she leaves. So Romeo's out there by himself now. Oh, blessed, blessed night. I am afeard, being in night, all this is but a dream, too flattering, sweet to be substantial. So he's like, oh, this is an awesome night. He's like, but because it's dark out, I'm kind of afraid that it's all a dream and it's too good to be real. And Juliet comes back in. 3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent of love be honor, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow by one that I'll procure to come to thee, where and what time thou wilt perform the rite. And all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lie, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. So she comes in, she's like, I got to tell you something real quick. She goes, if your intentions are true, if thy bent of love be honorable, thy purpose marriage. She goes, if you're meaning this and you want to marry me, then I'm going to send somebody to talk to you tomorrow. And you're going to tell them when you're going to marry me and at what time. And I'll meet you there. I'll put all of my fortunes at your feet, and I'll follow you throughout the world. And the nurse hollers at her again, Madam! And she hollers back, I come anon. But if thou meanst not well, I do beseech thee. Nurse again, Madam! So Madam, she's like, I'm coming. But then she's like, if you don't mean this truly, if you don't have honorable intentions, I beg you. So she hollers again there, by and by I come. So she tells her to cease thy strife and leave me to my grief. tomorrow I will send. So she says, if you mean this and you really want to marry me, I'm going to send somebody to you tomorrow. You tell them when and where, and I'll be right there. But if you don't mean this, leave me to my sadness and don't talk to me again. So Romeo starts to talk again. So thrive my soul. And he's like, my soul depends on it. She cuts him off. 1,000 times good night. She leaves. 1,000 times the worst to want thy life. Love goes towards love as schoolboys from their books, but love from love towards school with heavy looks. So he's like, leaving you's 1,000 times worse than being near you. He says love goes towards love like you students do when the school bell rings or the summer ends or the summer starts and school's over. Y'all are super happy about it. So that's how love goes towards their love. But love goes away from love like a student has to go to school. You're not happy about it. So Romeo goes to leave and Juliet comes back out on the balcony. Yes, Romeo, psst. Oh, for a falconer's voice to lure this tassel gentle back again. Bondage is hoarse and may not speak aloud, else I would tear the cave where echo lies, and make her airy tongue more hoarse than mine with my repetition of my Romeo. So she's like trying to get his attention. He's starting to leave. She's like, Romeo, Romeo. And she's like, I'm upset that I have to be quiet. You know, I can't, if I could, I would rip the skies open, you know, and with my cries. And Romeo hears her. It is my soul that calls upon my name. How silver sweet sound lovers' tongues by night, like softest music to attending ears. He's like, oh, I can hear, it's like music to my ears. Romeo, what o'clock tomorrow shall I send to thee? So she's like, what time should I send to you? By the hour of 9. He's like, by 9 o'clock, holler at me. I will not fail. 'Tis 20 year till then. I forgot why I did call thee back. So she's like, when should I call back? Find out when you want to do this. And he's like, send somebody to me by 9. And she's like, I won't, or I will. I can't wait. It's 20 years until then. And then she's like, forgot why she wanted to talk to him. She's like, I forgot why I did call thee back. And Romeo says, let me stand here till thou remember it. And she says, I shall forget to have thee still stand there, remembering how I love thy company. And he says, and I'll still stay to have thee still forgetting any other home but this. They're in the thing now to where it's like, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. Because she's like, I forgot why I called you back. And he goes, well, I'm going to stand here till you remember it. And she goes, well, I'm just going to keep forgetting then to keep you standing here. And he goes, well, I'll just keep standing here so that you keep forgetting and I keep standing here. Juliet says, 'tis almost morning, I would have thee gone, and yet no further than a wanton bird that lets it hop a little from his hand, like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves, and with a silken thread plucks it back again, so loving jealous of this liberty. She's like, I wish that you were like a little pet bird that a spoiled kid has, and I would have a little string on it so that it could kind of hop away, and then I could just pull it back to me. And he goes, I would if I were that bird. He's like, I wish I was that bird. And she says, sweet, so would I. Yet I should kill thee with much cherishing. Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow. And she leaves. So she's like, oh, I wish I could have you as my bird, but I'd kill you from petting you too much. So she's like, good night, good night. Parting is so terrible, but I'm going to say good night until it's tomorrow. And Romeo says, sleep dwell upon thy eyes, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep in peace, so sweet the rest. Hence will I go to my ghostly friar's close cell, his help to crave and my dear hap to tell. So she's like, I hope you sleep peacefully. If I were sleep and peace, I wish I were sleep and I were peace so I could spend the night with you. Now I'm going to go see my priest friend, my ghostly friar, and I'm going to need his help and ask him or tell him about my good luck. And he exits. And that is scene 3 or scene 2. So at the end of scene 2, I've got some work for you here. So you got the prologue. Down here, you're rewriting the prologue for Act 2 in your own words. And then you've got some questions about scene 2. Remember, as I'm showing you here, you can click in these and fill them out, then turn this in. You don't have to put another document or anything like that. Whenever you go to turn this in, you can just turn this assignment in. For those of you who are getting this on a DVD and a packet, you can fill this out and then, either I think I gave you envelopes to where you can mail it back to me, or you can take a picture, put it up on Classroom or email. If y'all have questions, remember kdalton@gilesk12.net. Later this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, I will send out a link so that there'll be a meeting, and anybody that has questions, they can talk to me there. If you have any other questions, email me please, kdalton@gilesk12.net. Y'all stay safe, and I'll see you the next time.